Hi, everybody. This is number 8 of Moses. And of course, there's so much about Moses. We could be at number 50, but I promise I won't have that many. But anyway, number 8 of Moses today talked a lot to me, and I hope it does to you. God's showing Moses today not to look at anyone else but him, not to look at what's going on politically, not what's going on as far as your friends are concerned, to always be looking at God first. Let's turn back to Exodus again, chapter 6, verses 10 through 13. God's going to tell Moses to repeat what he unsuccessfully did before. And so we're going to see what's happening. Again, this is chapter 6, verses 10 through 13. So the Lord said to Moses, "Go in, tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the people of Israel go out of his land." But Moses said to the Lord, "Behold, the people of Israel have not listened to me. How then shall Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips." But the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them a charge about the people of Israel. And remember, we had talked about having a charge before, that some of us have charges. But because we think maybe we are of uncircumcised lips, that we should not be able to do it. That we think because some people will not listen to us, some people don't care what we're doing, then we should not go to the other person that God has called us to do. The only person that we can look at and get direction from that really knows us and willing to use us is God. Other people always have a kind of skewed judgment about us. Uncircumcised lips, Moses said. Remember, he first objected because he wasn't capable. He wasn't a good speaker. Now he's objecting because he's not worthy. He feels he's not worthy to do it. And how many of us at times think that? Not only can I not speak well, if the Lord were to ask me to speak, but me, I come from the wrong side of the tracks in Detroit. He would call me, Janette Stone, or Janette Brown, to do something. Do you see how quickly we can get off track if we don't just listen to what God tells us to do? God did not want Moses to look at Pharaoh, not to look at the children of Israel or himself, but to look at God alone. God truly was building endurance in Moses, and that's the very thing he's doing with us. We begin to endure, we begin to be stronger, to be single-minded in what we are to be doing. What's the most important thing? Just this weekend, I had someone, they had been trying to get together with Bill and I, and I kept having to tell them when we would be free. And she said, "You're just too busy." So she would probably, I didn't ask her, would rather I was not busy doing what the Lord has called me to do, I think, in order to do what she would call me to do. Do you see how quickly we can get off track if we don't watch it? God is building endurance in us. The ability to stick with God's plan. That's what God wanted. Even though it doesn't seem to work. Even though it doesn't seem that there are a number of people telling us to continue. That is called faith. So if you ever want to know what faith is, that's what it is. To be able to look at God, do what he has called you to do, instead of what other people think we should do, or what we think we're not quite good enough to do, or we're not quite worthy enough to do. This was God's will. This is what God wanted Moses to do. It wasn't a suggestion. When God calls us to do something, he doesn't suggest that we do it. He calls us to do it. He gives us a charge to do it. This was his divine command that would be accomplished one way or another. And it's not just Moses, of course, that God works with. God works with each one of us with that same kind of intensity, that same kind of quality of purpose that God has. Because me and God can do anything. Me and God know everything. Me and God are very qualified, as you are, as you have God walking right beside you. There was another person in the Bible that complained that he had uncircumcised lips, and so he could not do it, was not worthy. That was Isaiah, chapter 6. Today I'm going to turn to a suggestion. Oftentimes I will suggest a part of the Bible and then I go to it. But Isaiah, if you only read one book in the Bible, please read Isaiah from beginning to end. It will really speak to you. Isaiah, by the way, I might study him next time. Chapter 6, verses 1 and 8. God is going to deal with Isaiah. Chapter 6. In the year that King Hezekiah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne. This is Isaiah talking. High and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. And then he said, one angel called, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And Isaiah saw that. And the foundations of the thresholds shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, this is Isaiah who said, woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the middle of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King. See, he saw a vision of the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. If you don't feel that God has touched you, that has not touched your lips, that you are very qualified to speak, you're very qualified with our unclean lips, with the sins that we have sinned, with our background, whatever you might think. Once God touches you, you are very qualified. This was Isaiah. So the Lord wanted to send him to do great things, and we might get into Isaiah someday. Who knows? So Moses was to do what God told him to do because it was not a suggestion, it was a command. He's perfectly able, God is, to deal with the things in our life, the real things or the things we imagine that stop us from being used. Remember last session, Moses cast his rod down and it became a snake, and the magicians imitated it, and then turned the water into blood, and the magicians imitated that also. But then remember the rod that was cast down, changed to a snake, and the magicians did that? Do you know what happened? I didn't read it. Did you read it? That Moses' rod swallowed the magician's rod. God is always the stronger. We never ever have to fear. Even if we see imitations, we still do not have to fear. God always wins. So Moses was going to Pharaoh, wanting to, of course, get the people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. And God had told him it was going to happen. There were 9 plagues that were going to happen with Pharaoh before he would listen. 9 times God tried very strongly to tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Pay attention to me. The water was turned to blood. Then there were frogs. The Egyptians worshipped the frog. It was considered a female goddess, and so they didn't want to kill the frogs. That would have been wrong. So they had a whole country full of frogs. And then Pharaoh asked Moses to ask God to take the frogs away. Do you see that Moses really knew there was a God? But he didn't own him. He didn't receive him. As we work with people, and there's always, to me, a very real sense that they already know. So as you're working with people, and if you want to read Romans, a couple of chapters of Romans, that will tell you that too. So Pharaoh asked. So Moses had the frogs go away. Once that happened, Pharaoh hardened his heart again. Once the hardship was taken away, then Pharaoh hardened his heart. And we can do that, and other people can do that too. And then there was lice. Really, God didn't warn Pharaoh. He just did it. There were gnats and whatever they were, gnats or lice. They are not quite clear what they were. He just did it. First time that the magicians could not imitate it. See, Satan is limited. The only one who is not limited is God. I don't know where Satan became equal to God in many people's eyes. He is not. He's less than God. So, Pharaoh asked that the lice be taken away. He did it. Pharaoh again hardened his heart. And then there were flies. Goshen was not affected. We can look at verse 20 through 23. It was really interesting to me, the fact that, let me see what chapter I'm on here. Anyway, the Goshen was not, that means the Israelites were not affected. But the people in, of course, Egyptians were. And the fact that even though we see all that's going on today, there will be a time, if you keep your eyes on the Lord, that you will not be as fearful, you will not be as tense as we are feeling people around us are, because we know God is in charge. And then after the flies, chapter 9, all the livestock was going to die. And he said, Moses said to Pharaoh, let my people go, but if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall with a very severe plague upon your livestock. They are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks will all go. But the Lord will make a distinction. I love this. The Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die. There is a distinction between people who believe in Jesus, who are Christians, who have accepted all that's there for them, between them and people who do not. Somehow we do not want to be different. We think if we are different, then people will think that we think we're better than they are. No, we know we are of unclean lips, that God has touched our lips. That's why we can do what we do. But there is a difference. There is a line that is drawn, and God is the one that has drawn it. We did not. That makes us different. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel. And I want to say the Lord will make a distinction between your life, if you really accept Jesus and the salvation that he has offered you, and people around you. It will be different. Tomorrow the Lord will do this thing, Moses said, in this land. And the next day the Lord did this thing. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. We have this promise. And God does not mind if we go to him and we say, you know what, you remember, God, what you did when Moses was around? And even though there was harsh things going on with the Egyptians, but you said you were going to save the Israelites. Does that mean me now too? Does that mean that you're going to protect me during this time? To be able to go to God and talk to Him about it. And that's why we have this written word. That's why we study it, because it shows us what we can use in our own life. The livestock, all of them died. Moses went to Pharaoh, was called. Pharaoh asked for forgiveness. Whoops. Once they were okay, once it was okay again, then he hardened his heart again. So as we go to people and you say, oh, I've tried so many times to talk to whomever or make a difference to whomever is around me, we have an example here of the perseverance of Moses. Remember what Moses did when we first begin to talk about him? He killed somebody. So if you think your life has been so wretched, or you have been, that you're not qualified, you are qualified. God will touch you. And when He does touch you, then He makes everything, He forgives everything, He makes everything all right. And even the things that you have done that maybe makes you feel you are not qualified will make you stronger. God will use it. Trust me. Thank you for today. Have a good day. Let me pray. Dear Father, I pray so very much that those of us who might think I'm not worthy, I'm not qualified, I can't do this, that you will touch us today. We will feel your presence. I ask this in your Son's name. Amen. Have a good day.